September 3, 1939. The day Britain declared war on Nazi Germany, MI5 quietly began a manhunt that almost no civilian knew existed. While the world braced for bombs, troops and blackouts, a different kind of war ignited inside London's grey office buildings. A shadow war fought not with guns, but with whispers, forged identities, and terrified enemy spies who suddenly realized the British intelligence system was far smarter, far faster, and far more ruthless than they had ever imagined. And this is the origin of the double-cross system, the operation where Britain captured almost every German agent on its soil, flipped them, and used them to feed Hitler a perfectly engineered diet of lies. When war broke out, the Abwehr, Germany's military intelligence, believed Britain was chaotic, unprepared, and full of openings. They assumed slipping spies into the country would be easy, but they underestimated MI5's new counterintelligence strategy, a machine-like system built on surveillance files, immigration traps, mail interception, and something the Germans didn't think Britain had: absolute discipline. Within months, MI5 had a near-complete map of enemy spy routes, landing spots, and fake identities. And by late 1939, they started picking the spies off one by one. Almost every agent the Germans sent, parachuted over the countryside, smuggled through ports, or disguised as refugees, was arrested within hours or days. They weren't caught because they made rookie mistakes. They were caught because MI5 had prepared a net so tight that even a perfect spy couldn't pass through without leaving a thread behind. And once a spy was caught, MI5 didn't simply jail them. No, the British had a far better idea. Turn the spy around and make him work for us. This is where the double-cross system was born, a psychological negotiation table that felt more like chess than interrogation. MI5 didn't torture, they didn't scream. Instead, they used fear, logic, and incentive. They placed captured spies in a room, showed them the evidence, and offered a simple choice: work for Germany and die, or work for Britain and live. Most agents folded fast. Some broke down crying. Some tried to act loyal to the Reich until the moment MI5 put execution papers in front of them. But nearly all of them flipped, because they knew the British had their real names, their families' addresses, their Abwehr handlers, their coded messages, everything. There was no escape, only cooperation. And once the spy flipped, MI5 rebuilt them, like repairing a weapon and aiming it back at its owner. Each agent was assigned handlers, safe houses, schedules, and message-writing supervisors. They continued sending updates to Germany, but every line, every number, every location was now controlled by MI5. Britain didn't simply silence German espionage. They hijacked the entire network from within. By early 1940, a stunning reality emerged. Every single German spy in Britain was either captured or reporting to MI5. Germany had no idea. They believed their intelligence network was thriving. They believed their agents were loyal. They believed the information flowing in was real. But behind the curtain, Britain was rewriting everything, feeding the Reich false troop numbers, fake naval routes, imaginary airfields, and decoy invasion plans. And the most incredible part? The Germans trusted every word. This trust didn't happen by luck. It was engineered. MI5 allowed tiny mistakes that made reports feel authentic. They let the spies complain about cold weather, food shortages, or occasional surveillance. They added human flaws to maintain realism. And sometimes they leaked just enough true information to keep Berlin happy. Never enough to cause real damage, but enough to maintain credibility. The point is this: Britain didn't beat German spies. Britain used German spies. The Abwehr spent money, manpower, and resources training agents, sending them overseas, providing codes, also that MI5 could convert those agents into double-barrel intelligence weapons. By the end of point one truth is clear. The double-cross system didn't start as a deception strategy. It started as a total takeover, a quiet, invisible coup inside the heart of German intelligence, executed by MI5 before most Allied soldiers even reached their first battlefield. This was the foundation, the moment. Britain turned espionage into a programmable weapon. Everything that would come later: fake divisions, false invasion maps, fabricated resistance networks, all of it started here, on that September day when MI5 realized the greatest trick of the war would be played with captured Germans holding pens, not guns. January 1941. Britain had just finished rounding up every major German spy scattered across the country, and for a brief moment it looked like MI5 had won. But then a far more dangerous question appeared. What happens now? If those captured spies suddenly stopped sending messages back to Berlin, the Abwehr would instantly realize something was wrong, and the entire British victory would collapse in a single day. And so point 2 begins exactly where point 1 ended, with MI5 staring at a room full of captured agents, knowing that the real challenge wasn't catching them, it was becoming them. Germany monitored everything a spy sent, the pace of his typing, the rhythm of his punctuation, the way he complained about London's cold weather, the mistakes he naturally made in German grammar, and the tone he used when he was nervous. If even one detail changed, Berlin would know the agent had been compromised. That meant MI5 had no choice. They had to imitate every captured spy so perfectly that German intelligence couldn't tell the difference. This was the birth of a new phase of the double-cross system, where the job was no longer policing spies, but performing them like actors on a wartime stage. The British now needed to send fake messages through real German agents. But to do that, every lie had to sound like the agent himself was thinking it. So in early 1941, British intelligence created a small, secret smoke-filled strategy room in London where officers sat across from captured spies and studied them like living textbooks. They examined their handwriting, their favorite phrases, their personal jokes, their reactions under pressure, and even the excuses they used when they missed deadlines. MI5 wasn't just controlling the spies' radios, they were absorbing the spies' identities. If a German agent frequently misspelled a specific German word, MI5 made sure to misspell it the same way. If the spy liked to add unnecessary commas or long pauses in his messages, MI5 mirrored those patterns exactly. If the spy had a habit of complaining about British food or the damp winter air, those small gripes were intentionally added into the next transmission. Nothing was accidental. Everything was engineered to make Berlin believe the voice coming over the radio was the same loyal agent they had trained and sent to Britain months earlier. The incredible thing is how fast MI5 became good at this. By February 1941, British officers could write messages that even the Abwehr's strict analysts couldn't distinguish from the real agent's style. And because the real spies were often untrained, lazy, inconsistent, or simply bad at their work, MI5's carefully crafted forgeries sometimes looked more believable than the original agent's genuine reports. This had an unexpected side effect. The German High Command began trusting these MI5-controlled double agents more than some of their own frontline observers. Berlin thought they were getting gold from inside Britain, when in reality they were consuming British-crafted illusions. By the middle of 1941, the double-cross system was no longer just a defensive net. It had become an offensive weapon. MI5 wasn't simply blocking German intelligence anymore. They were shaping it. Every message the British sent now had weight. A lie inserted into a report could shift German reconnaissance flights. A small false detail about troop movement could redirect Luftwaffe bombers to empty fields instead of real targets. And because MI5 had become so skilled at impersonating these agents, Germany never suspected a thing. They believed every word. And that is where point 2 ends, with MI5 successfully transforming captured German spies into fully controlled communication pipelines, feeding Berlin a stream of believable information crafted in London. Germany thought their network was stronger than ever. In reality, Britain had pulled off something no major power had done before, turning the enemy's entire spy system into their own private broadcast channel. And now, with Berlin convinced they were receiving accurate intelligence, MI5 was ready to take the double-cross system to its next stage, where the lies they crafted wouldn't just confuse Germany. They would begin shaping actual battlefields, including the greatest deception operation of the entire war. By late 1941, the double-cross system had matured into something far more powerful than MI5 had ever imagined. What began as emergency impersonation was now transforming into a strategic weapon capable of shaping German decisions at will. Point 2 ended with MI5 gaining control of the enemy's entire communication pipeline. Point 3 begins with Britain finally learning how to use it. The first step was understanding what Germany wanted to hear. Berlin constantly demanded reports about troop movements, coastal defenses, new weapon tests, supply shortages, and the condition of British morale. MI5 realized that these requests were not random. They were the blueprint of German intelligence thinking. Every question Berlin asked revealed what they feared, what they hoped, and what they planned to attack next. By studying these patterns, the British could predict German intentions before they became actions. That meant MI5 could start feeding Germany carefully designed fragments of truth wrapped in subtle lies. Just enough real detail to earn trust, but enough fiction to push German strategy in the wrong direction. This was where the double-cross system truly became dangerous. Instead of simply sending harmless misinformation, MI5 started crafting stories that guided Germany toward wasted resources, pointless surveillance, and inaccurate assessments of British strength. For example, when Berlin demanded updates on RAF airfields, MI5 used double agents to exaggerate the number of functioning bases, making Germany believe Britain had more operational air power than it actually did. When Germany asked about coastal defences, MI5 agents described imaginary minefields, fake anti-tank trenches, and non-existent artillery positions. The Abwehr, thinking it was receiving premium first-hand intelligence, redirected bombers and reconnaissance flights based on these false reports, often wasting precious fuel and time searching for targets that didn't exist. And the psychological impact was just as important as the physical one. MI5 understood that a good lie doesn't only misdirect the enemy, it shapes their worldview. So double agents were instructed to sprinkle emotional detail into their transcripts, describing a Britain exhausted but determined, weakened but unbroken. Berlin grew confident that their spies were close to everyday British life, and that closeness made the misinformation even more convincing. One double agent sent messages about overhearing soldiers complain in pubs about long marches and bad rations, subtle hints that British morale was supposedly crumbling. Another described factory workers behaving nervously after air raids, implying production delays. To Berlin, these details sounded authentic. To MI5, they were the perfect ingredients for controlled deception. And because each agent had a unique personality, MI5 shaped each voice differently, one more dramatic, one more technical, one more pessimistic, one more hopeful. This diversity made the entire network feel alive and organic. But the real turning point came when MI5 realized Germany often cross-checked one spy's report against another. This could have exposed the entire system instantly, unless MI5 coordinated every agent's story to fit perfectly together. So MI5 built a secret master narrative, a giant map on the wall where every lie, every truth, and every half-truth had to align. If one double agent reported convoys moving west, another had to mention the same movement from a different angle. If one described an under-defended coastline, another had to subtly confirm it weeks later. And the brilliance of MI5's system was that each lie was carefully timed, spaced out, and delivered through different agents, so Germany believed the intelligence was coming from multiple independent sources. By early 1942, Germany's entire picture of British military readiness was being shaped by this synchronized illusion. Berlin didn't know it, but almost every major report they trusted was written by MI5 staff in a small building off Leconfield House. The Abwehr's most reliable spies, men they celebrated internally, were actually under British control, feeding them visions of strength when there was weakness, and weakness when there was strength. Germany began planning operations around these false impressions, sending reconnaissance planes to empty beaches, deploying U-boats to the wrong sea lanes, and adjusting bombing priorities based on fabricated intelligence. And that is where point 3 ends, with the double-cross system successfully shifting from a defensive tool to an offensive machine, rewriting the German understanding of Britain in real time. Berlin remained confident in the agents they believed were risking their lives behind enemy lines. But the truth was far more remarkable. Britain was now preparing to use this deception network on a scale the world had never seen, shaping operations not just for defense, but for the largest invasion of the war. By mid-1943, the double-cross system had evolved from a clever ruse into one of the most critical weapons in the Allied arsenal. Building on the success of feeding false information to the German High Command, MI5 now faced its greatest challenge, orchestrating a deception campaign so vast, so believable, that it could shape the outcome of entire battles. This task was monumental, not just in scope, but in precision. Every detail had to be flawless, because the stakes couldn't have been higher. If Germany ever uncovered the truth, the entire network would collapse, and Allied plans could be jeopardized. But if MI5 succeeded, it would pave the way for a strategic advantage, unlike any seen before. The stage was set for one of the most ambitious deception operations of the war, Operation Fortitude. This grand plan was designed to convince the Nazis that the upcoming Allied invasion of Western Europe would occur at Pas-de-Calais, rather than the actual landing site in Normandy. To achieve this, the double-cross agents became the mouthpieces of an entire phantom army. The 1st United States Army Group, supposedly commanded by General George Patton. MI5 fed Germany detailed reports about troop numbers, equipment shipments, training exercises, and even morale within this imaginary force. Every message reinforced the illusion of an impending, massive assault on the wrong beach. To sell this narrative, the double agents delivered carefully curated intelligence that described daily life. Within the Phantom Army camps, they relayed fake radio transmissions, false orders, and even personal letters supposedly intercepted by German signals units. These accounts created an entire world for German intelligence to believe in, a world where thousands of troops prepared diligently for an invasion that was never going to come. But the brilliance of the double-cross system didn't stop at words. It coordinated with visual deceptions, inflatable tanks, dummy landing crafts, fake airfields, and staged radio traffic all synchronized to support the false reports. From the skies to the ground, the Germans were surrounded by a web of convincing lies. One double agent, famously codenamed Garbo, played an essential role in this operation. His reports were so detailed, so consistent, that German commanders trusted him implicitly. Garbo's intelligence included fake orders from Patton himself, descriptions of training drills, and even stories of soldiers' fears and hopes. His ability to weave believable narratives earned him the highest praise from Nazi intelligence, and his reports influenced key strategic decisions. German troops were stationed to defend Pas-de-Calais in anticipation of an invasion that would never come, while Normandy was lightly defended and vulnerable. The psychological effect on German planning was profound. The double-cross system did more than just mislead. It shaped how the enemy allocated resources, deployed forces, and anticipated attacks. German commanders grew obsessed with the Phantom Army, wasting manpower and equipment guarding the wrong coast. This diversion bought the Allies precious time and space to launch their real assault. It wasn't just trickery, it was a strategic masterpiece that saved countless lives and shortened the war. Yet maintaining this complex deception was a daily struggle. MI5 had to keep every agent's story consistent, respond quickly to German counterintelligence, and adapt to shifting battlefield conditions. When Germany sent reconnaissance flights over fake camps, MI5's visual deception teams ensured that inflatable tanks and dummy vehicles were arranged perfectly. When new questions arose about troop morale or supply lines, double agents quickly improvised believable answers. Every message was checked and double-checked, every detail scrutinized for accuracy and impact. The system was a delicate balance of creativity, discipline, and nerve. By the time D-Day arrived on June 6, 1944, the double-cross system had firmly convinced the Nazis that Normandy was a feint. The real invasion was expected somewhere else. German forces remained spread thin, distracted by phantom armies and false reports. This intelligence victory was one of the most significant achievements of the Allied war effort, a victory of minds, not just guns. The double-cross agents had turned deception into a weapon of mass strategic impact. The aftermath of the invasion revealed just how effective this approach had been. German commanders were slow to respond to the real landings, reluctant to abandon their defenses at Pas-de-Calais. The surprise and confusion gave the Allies the critical foothold they needed to push inland and eventually liberate Western Europe. The double-cross system had rewritten the enemy's understanding of the battlefield and controlled their movements from afar. In the grand story of World War II, the double-cross system stands as a testament to intelligence, creativity, and human ingenuity. It transformed spies from mere informants into architects of war, wielding influence not through bullets, but through the power of belief. The lines between truth and fiction blurred, and in that blur, victory was crafted. As the war dragged on into 1945, the double-cross system remained a linchpin of Allied intelligence efforts, proving its worth not just in the lead-up to D-Day, but in the critical final months of the European conflict. The stakes were higher than ever. Hitler's regime was desperate, their forces stretched thin, and every bit of misinformation could turn the tide of battles, raging across multiple fronts. MI5's network of double agents became more than just a tool for deception. It became a vital lifeline for coordinating the flow of disinformation that kept the Nazis off balance. The challenge intensified as Germany's intelligence apparatus grew more suspicious and sophisticated. The Gestapo and Abwehr relentlessly hunted for traitors and double agents, and any slip could mean disaster, not just for the spies, but for entire Allied operations. MI5 had to exercise the utmost caution, weaving an ever more complex web of falsehoods, while maintaining the credibility and consistency of every agent's story. Each report had to strike a perfect balance, plausible enough to convince, but vague enough to avoid contradictions that could unravel the entire system. This delicate dance played out in countless messages sent back to Berlin, each carefully crafted to maintain the illusion of normalcy within the German-controlled territories. Double agents reported on fake troop movements, phantom reinforcements, and non-existent supply shortages. Some even relayed fabricated rumors about political unrest and morale problems within Allied ranks, aiming to sow seeds of doubt and discord in the enemy's mind. Through these carefully planted narratives, the double-cross system became a psychological weapon that extended beyond the battlefield into the very heart of enemy command. Meanwhile, the agents themselves lived double lives fraught with danger and deception. Many risked their lives daily, walking the razor's edge between loyalty and betrayal. Some faced constant surveillance, arrest, or even execution if discovered. Their work was silent, often unseen, but the impact was immense. They were the unseen puppeteers pulling strings that dictated troop deployments, strategic decisions, and ultimately, the fate of the war itself. One particularly notable operation involved convincing the Germans that the Allies planned to launch a major offensive in the Netherlands during the winter of 1944. Double agents flooded Berlin with reports of troop buildups, supply stockpiles, and reconnaissance missions aimed at this false target. German commanders, reacting to these reports, diverted significant forces away from the Ardennes, weakening their positions there. This diversion contributed to the success of the Allied counter-offensive during the Battle of the Bulge, a decisive turning point that hastened the collapse of Nazi resistance. As Allied forces advanced into Germany, the double-cross system adapted yet again. Agents continued feeding false intelligence, this time about supposed retreats, reinforcements arriving from the east, or even secret peace negotiations. These fabricated stories aimed to confuse and demoralize German troops, still fighting fiercely on the front lines. The intelligence war was relentless, ongoing until the very last days before Germany's surrender in May 1945. The legacy of the double-cross system is profound. It transformed the nature of espionage from mere information gathering to an active, creative force shaping the course of history. MI5's ability to turn enemy agents into tools of deception demonstrated the power of psychological warfare long before the modern age of cyber operations and electronic surveillance. It proved that sometimes the pen, or in this case, the cleverly crafted message, is mightier than the sword. Historians today look back on the double-cross system as one of the most successful intelligence operations in history. It was a masterpiece of coordination, trust, and audacity, relying on human cunning and resolve rather than brute force. By manipulating perceptions and feeding a steady stream of convincing falsehoods, the Allies gained a strategic edge that proved crucial to winning the war. The story of the double-cross system is also a reminder that wars are fought not just with guns and tanks, but with ideas, beliefs, and information. The ability to control what an enemy believes can be as powerful as any weapon on the battlefield. And in World War II, MI5's double agents didn't just pass secrets, they created realities that shaped the destiny of nations. In the end, the double-cross system was more than just an intelligence operation. It was a symbol of human ingenuity and resilience. Against all odds, a handful of spies managed to outwit one of the most formidable military machines in history. Their success not only changed the outcome of World War II, but also set a new standard for intelligence work that continues to influence modern espionage to this day.